GCSE Business Studies students. This resource has been created to help you with 9-mark questions that appear on your exam paper. Now, what a lot of business studies students say to us is that they're not quite sure how to write their answer, as in they don't know how to link their thoughts together on paper. So this structure is to help you with that linking process. So I'm going to talk you through how to answer a 9-mark question, but also give you tips about how to structure your response, giving you phrases that you can use, for example. So let's begin with the opening sentence. So this is where you demonstrate to the examiner that you understand the question that's been asked. You do this by explaining and using the business terms connected to the topic. Often there's a business term in the question. That's the one you need to be explaining. You also write your gut feeling to the question in an I think sentence. Now, this is where you begin going, oh, I don't know what to write, I don't know what to write. So here are some examples for you. So here are some examples of how you could write your opening sentence then. For example, you might want to use the being means that. So you'd say being a franchise means that, and then you explain what a franchise is. Then you could also use, I think that all businesses should become franchises. This is because, and then go on to write your answer. You could also say a franchise means that, then again explains what a franchise is. So you could use any of these 4 opening sentence structures to help you begin your 9-mark question answer. Once you've written your opening sentence, you then make your first good point. This is where you give one advantage, disadvantage or reason for whatever the question is about. Remember, it all depends on the question. You then explain this point using the business terms that relate to the topic that you're writing about, and you refer back to the case study. For example, if the business you're talking about has a name, use that name in your answer. You then analyse your point, okay, which is where you say however, and you provide and explain the alternative view to your original point. So if you give an advantage to begin with, you then give a disadvantage. If you give a disadvantage at the beginning of your paragraph, you then give an advantage in this part of your paragraph. So then, how would you structure this part of your answer? So this is how you can structure your first good point. All you have to do is fill in the gaps. Now if you notice, after each gap, in brackets, there's a little hint or a tip or a question to help you to decide what needs to go into the gap. You also notice it says but if. That's where you put your alternative view across. You can use however if you want to, though, in place of but if. The decision is yours. Now, this is a structure that does work for most 9-mark questions, but there are times when you will have to adapt it depending on the question. If you are using this to practice a 9-mark question at home, what I do is I pause it now and use the structure behind me to write your first good paragraph. So then, after your first good point, you're now going to move on and make your second good point. You just repeat what you've just done for the first one. So you give one reason, advantage or disadvantage, depends on the question. Explain that point using your key business terms, and remember to relate the case study back to your answer. You're then going to analyse it again using however, but remember you can use but if as well. Provide and explain the alternative view then to your original point like before. So the same principle applies. As it's the same as the first good point, the structure for your answer is exactly the same. So once again, you just need to fill in the gaps. Remember to use the hints, tips and questions to guide how you write your response. Now once again, if you're writing along with me, so you're practicing a 9-mark question at home, pause at this point and use the structure behind me again to write your next point. After making your 2 good points, you're now going to write your evaluation. This is where you summarise your decision about the question. Use phrases such as I recommend, I suggest, that the business in the case study does, and explain your answer. Always remember to use the Wizard of Oz technique because to justify your answer to the examiner. They will be looking for this. Use words such as would, could, should, might or may, as you're not entirely sure that your suggestions will work for the business. So how would you therefore structure this paragraph if you're struggling to write it? So to write your evaluation, use this structure. You can use I think, I believe, I recommend, or I suggest to begin it. Don't use all of them, you just pick the one that you want. Remember, fill in the gaps again, and there is no reason why you won't get a good mark for your 9-mark question. Now, if you're practicing a 9-mark question at home, remember, pause the video now, use the structure behind me to write your evaluation. If you take the advice that I've given you during this video, then your 9-mark questions should look great.